bit, but we see the let us make.
Let us make man.
Yeah. So we have to ask, who's the us? Always before here, we've had God, but there's been no us. It's just been God, and it's always been singular.
Yeah.
Now we have a plural. We have a plural verb. Let us make. We have Adam, the word mankind, and specifically it's in our image.
Again, plural.
Plural. And then a second thing, according to our likeness. So we have the word, we have another plural. But then we have this idea, image and likeness. And what do we not have? We don't have after their kind.
Right. Like the seeds and the trees and the fruit trees.
And the birds
Yeah.
and the great sea
They
monsters.
multiplied according to their
That's right.
kind.
That's right. Everything that has been made so far.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say, let us make man after their kind. So we're going to have to answer that question. Welcome to this episode of Open Scripture, where we seek to sharpen the way the church reads her foundational texts. My name is Tracy McKenzie, professor of Hebrew and Old Testament at a local seminary. Nick Nail, PhD student and worship leader at our church. And here we are in Genesis 1, unpacking the details of these days when God prepared the heavens and the earth for human inhabitation. Nick, last time we got into days 2 through 4, and we showed basically the purpose of that in the chapter. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it was really helpful when you explained the difference between God creating something and God making something, where when we get through these days 2 through 4, God is making. He made the things, and you explained it as if like you make your bed. So It's not like you created your bed. No, you're putting it together. You're making it presentable. You're taking already existing materials and putting it to a purpose. Yeah. And so that's helpful when we think, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky. It's not like God created the sun and the moon at that moment because they were already created. He's just taking them and now putting them to a purpose and arranging them.
That's right.
So that's really helpful.
Good,
yeah.
Good. We also noted there on that day 4 that that specific grammatical construction is let there be to do something, right? And in that case was let there be to divide. Let them be to divide. That is, the lights were put to divide. Again, not necessarily created. Well, in this episode, we're going to get into the 5th day, where we do see some special things going on, 1 or 2 special things. And like the other days, we're really gunning for the 6th day, where we're going to show why the 6th day is the climax of the chapter, why it's so prominent. And the author has gone to great detail to make the 6th day very prominent, and he wants you to take away specific significance from that day. So we'll cover those things in this episode.
Sounds great.
So let's just start there in the 5th day, the beginning of the 5th day. You want to pick it up right there?
Yep, and this is in verse 20. Then God said, "Let the water swarm with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky."
All right, very good. So we already see a couple different things here. Of course, we have our "and God said." We also have "let the waters be." So we have the speaking, we have the volitional verb, and now we're going to see what's going to happen there. We might also note that, again, now God is going to put these things in the spheres that he had created. So notice that in the waters, that is in the seas that he had divided in an earlier day, he's putting these kind of swarming things. And then also the birds, the fowl, are going to fly over the earth, it says here, upon or in this expanse of the heavens. So this expanse of the heavens is not necessarily where the outer galaxies. No, this expanse that we saw him make when he divided between the waters above and the waters below are where birds fly.
Just where you look up and see
Yeah,
the sky.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the waters are going to have these swarming things. Now, it is interesting here. Again, it's the waters. He says, let the waters swarm with swarming living things. And then he says, let the birds bird over the land. So he's doing that same thing with the noun and the verb, which are from the same root word. And I think here he's, again, doing this purposefully.
So this is also kind of a callback to last episode. You said the illustration of a skyscraper. You have the building framework, so you have the frame that we just got through with, and now the frame is being filled with the actual content of the building.
That's right. Yeah. And it is like each floor, if you want to, again, use a six story kind of skyscraper apartment building, each floor is being put with a little bit more content and a little bit more special content. It's like we're heading for the sixth day being, maybe the penthouse where, the nicest furniture is, if you will. And that is what's going on here, and could be what he's doing even with these, what's called a cognate accusative, where the verb and the noun, the verb and the subject are the same thing. Now, what's going to change? What's going to dramatically change? He says, let the waters swarm.
Yeah.
So we might anticipate the waters swarming. That's what we would really anticipate. We would anticipate a narrative verb saying, and the waters swarm, but that's not what happens. Very significantly, we see something in verse 21. You want to let's see how the CSB rendered this.
Yes, so God created the large sea creatures and every living creature that moves and swarms in the water according to their kinds. He also created every winged creature according to its kind, and God saw that it was good.
All right. Again, a lot going on here. There is a sense where we're already to the, and God saw that it was good. And we know that when we think from the previous days that when we see and God saw that it was good, we should be near the end of the day. But there's going to be something else that's special about the fifth day. But let's go back here and look at a couple things in verse 21 here. First of all, notice now that the waters are going to swarm with these living things after their kind. So what God started in verse 20, where he said, let the waters swarm, that is the outcome of his action at the beginning of verse 21, which I'll come back to here in a minute. Notice also that it was after their kind. So just like the fruit trees that produced seeds, making fruit in them after their kind,
Right.
so these animals or living things are doing that. And then also notice it's also the same thing with the winged birds.
Yeah.
After their kind.
And God created this. He didn't form them or make them.
This is the big thing. This is the big thing, because we have here our word bara. So it's very interesting here that we actually get a significant kind of cut, because again, we would expect the waters to swarm. That's what happened when the earth grassed grass. But here, he said, let the waters swarm, but then he intervenes here. And specifically, then we get this word bara, which we haven't seen since Genesis 1:1.
Yeah.
So everything else, God maybe fashioned, he prepared, he kind of made it.
Yeah.
But here we're saying, no, this is special. This is significant. That's why there's a heightened significance in day 5, because he created.
So this maybe is a question of the genre. But if he created these large sea creatures on day 5, does that mean that there was no animals that existed before this day? Because if he created the heavens and the earth, he created everything on before day 1 and verse 1, created everything. But then all these other things already existed. He started putting them together. But then when you get to these animals, these creatures, he actually creates them. He doesn't just make them.
Right.
So did they not exist, or is this just the telling of it because it's poetry and this is a specific genre? Are we are we getting too deep in the weeds to explain those like scientific explanations?
No, I mean, I think those are good questions again. I think at least from the presentation of the material here, these great sea monsters and everything that comes in verse 21, look at all that we have. We have these great sea monsters, whatever those are. We
Yeah.
can talk about that. And then we have basically every kind of living thing that creeps, which the waters swarmed. So, I mean, I'm taking this to be everything that's in the seas,
Yeah.
right? Because again, that's the sphere that he's filling.
Yep.
He's filling the seas, which are the waters, and he's filling the waters above, which are the sky, and he's filling that with the birds. So I would say they didn't exist yet.
Okay.
He's creating them. Now, I think that's the presentation that we have here because of this word create. And I think I would want to add, regardless of your view there, we can definitely see the special use of this word create here.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, now we're going back to Genesis 1:1 with this word. Now, that's not all. I mentioned that, and God saw that it was good. We would be expecting, if we're following days 1 through 4, we would be expecting there was evening and morning the fifth day. But that's not what we see.
Yeah.
Instead, we get another kind of significant increase in activity here. And this is verse 22, and God blessed them. Now, what is interesting is we have a word play here with the word create. They're spelled, 2 of the 3 letters in these words are the same. So everybody agrees there's a word play here that is tying together blessing and God's creative activity. And what is significant here is that basically the blessing is going to involve being fruitful and multiplying.
Yeah.
I just might add, go back one thing here. The great sea monsters. There is a question of what this is. This word shows up in Isaiah 27:1, if I remember. It shows up in maybe Psalm 73, 74. There's a discussion. Is this dragon? Is this the whale? Is this the Loch Ness monster? Again, I think that's getting kind of beyond the pale here of what we're talking about. But I think we can just see these are the great beasts, if you will, of the sea. And that's the point here. Now, back to verse 22, we see here that the blessing is God now saying, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the waters, and then let the birds multiply in the land. So again, another piece of evidence that we would say, yeah, this is the purpose of these particular days. God is filling the spheres that he had prepared in days 1 through 3. And I don't want to just hammer that point or keep hammering that point, but that's going to be part of the argument that day 6 is the climax.
Right.
So again, I want to come back to that again one more time before we get to day 6. And we're basically there.
Yeah.
Verse 23. Evening and morning, the fifth day. Got another ordinal number. All right. Now, finally, we get really to the moment we've been waiting for, and that is the 6th day. And it's not going to take us long here to note things are special in the 6th day. You want to get us started on the 6th day?
Verse 24, then God said, let the earth produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that crawl, and the wildlife of the earth according to their kinds. And it was so.
All right. So again, this is the first act of preparation on day 6. We're going to come to the second act momentarily. You might remember in the corresponding day 3, there were 2 acts. The second act was the kind of letting the earth bring forth vegetation. Now God here is filling basically the earth with these special living creatures. And what I find interesting is we have another let there be verb, and here it's let the earth bring forth these things.
So the earth brings forth this cattle and stuff, but previously God created the sea monsters and the birds, but he didn't. It doesn't say that he created these livestock, and so is there anything there happening, or are
Well,
we?
it's interesting, verse 25 is going to use this word make that
Yeah.
we've noted several things. God made these things. And we also, interestingly enough, don't see blessing to these. And so, again, from that, I'm taking more just related to the structure of the chapter. The creation and blessing is going to go to the second act of the day.
Yeah.
That's where we have this word create and the word blessing. So I also, we might say that there's no creation because he wants to emphasize the creation of man and woman.
So there's nothing about the sea creatures being more important than the livestock or
No, I don't.
creatures of the
No.
wildlife of the earth.
No, I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think so. I don't think that's part of the author's
Yeah.
purpose here. I also mentioned that there were actually fewer number of words in the fifth day. I mentioned that in the last episode. And I think the purpose of that is, in a sense, to rush over the fifth day because the author wants to get to the sixth day.
Yeah.
And in the creation, the act of creation, the great sea monsters, and the blessing, there's enough there to create significance on that day. He wants to move on to the fifth day. So, verse 25 then answers that volitional, let the earth bring forth. And it says, and God made the living things of the land, again, after their kind. So these cattle and all of these things are still after their kind. They're not like what's going to come in the second act here on day 6. These are the cattle after their kind, every creeping thing of the land after its kind. And again, God saw that it was good. So this must be the 6th, and God saw that it was good. So we got one more left.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the second act then. And we know this is the second act because he starts with, and God said, and then this volitional verb, let us.
Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, the whole earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth.
All right, very good. So quite a few significant things are going to happen in these 3 verses. And the thing I want to say here, I will point these out maybe in an outline later, but we should just note here right away, now we have this word make again.
Let us make man in
Let
our
us
image.
make, and that is the word make.
Yeah.
All right, so we've seen this word a bunch now, and we might think, what does this mean here? Well, we'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah.
The other thing that, of course, is significant here, I'll come back to this in a little bit, but we see the let us make.
Let us make man.
Yeah. So we have to ask, who's the us? Always before here, we've had God, but there's been no us. This has just been God, and it's always been singular.
Yeah.
Now we have a plural. We have a plural verb. Let us make. So we're going to have to answer that question. And then finally, we have Adam, the word mankind, and specifically, it's in our image,
Again, plural.
plural. And then a second thing, according to our likeness. So we have the word, we have another plural, but then we have this idea, image and likeness. And what do we not have? We don't have after their kind.
Right.
So it doesn't say, let us make man after their kind.
Like the seeds and the trees and the fruit trees
And the birds
Yeah.
and the great sea
they multiplied
monsters.
according to their
That's right.
kind.
That's right. And the cattle, the creeping things, everything that has been made so far
Yeah.
has been this way. Now, there is yet another thing that is unique. Now, this is let them rule. So it's interesting here. Now he says, let them. So we have a plural, let them, and this them is ruling.
Yeah.
So nobody else, the great sea monsters didn't rule.
Right.
The grass didn't rule. Nothing else has ruled. The sun and the moon governed, but this is a different word even than that. This is the word rule. And notice what they're ruling. They're ruling the fish of the sea. So again, what we've seen made earlier. The birds of the heaven, what we'd seen made earlier. The cattle, everything creeping that creeps upon the land, right? So basically, mankind is given this task of ruling all of the creatures and things that God had already prepared.
Wow.
All right? And then that brings us to verse 27. Maybe read 20. Yeah, just read 27 here.
So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female.
All right. So again, quite a few things going on here. Now we have the word create again. Now, we don't just have it once.
3 times.
We have it 3 times. So again, this is the author, if you think about the author, if we think about the author as in the way of like a director of a cinema, this would be the author using the loudest, most shrill music possible to get your attention, right? Or think of flashing neon lights.
Yeah.
His use of the word create here 3 times, he's banging a gong, saying, reader, pay attention. There is something special here going on that we see this word create 3 times. Not only that, but we also see poetry here.
Yeah.
Now, I think some of the versions, I'd be interested, the CSB, is this laid out in poetic?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
So notice the translators are noticing this. I can see, what's this right here?
An ESV.
ESV.
Yeah.
It also has it laid out as poetry. There's more white space right on your page. So here the editors are noticing, oh, wow, there's elevated language. There's actually parallelism, which is what basically makes Hebrew poetry. And there's parallelism here. So if we notice the parallelism here, we've got God created mankind in his image. And then we go backwards. In the image of God, he created him. And the him is just the singular mankind. Male and female, he created them. So here we have 3 parallel lines, and the unique element here is the male and female.
Right.
All right. So again, this is huge. I'm gonna hammer on this in a minute, but gender is here the first time. Something special is going on here. So again, the author not only uses create 3 times, he puts this line in poetic imagery. It'd be another example would be like an author, or a director, just going along with the bare lines of an actor, and all of a sudden the actor or the actress breaks out in this brilliant song at the top of her lungs. That's what the author is doing here with this poetry. He cannot signify in any stronger way something special is going on here. And then again, he caps it off with this male and female. He created them. So again, we're going to draw great significance from this. And I just want to say we're doing it because the author is shouting at the top of his lungs to pay attention here.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's conclude. Before I do that, let's conclude verse 28.
God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the earth.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and let you read 29 as well.
God also said, look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth, and every tree whose fruit contains seed. This will be food for you.
Okay, keep going.
For all the wildlife of the earth, for every bird of the sky, and for every creature that crawls on the earth, everything having the breath of life in it, I have given every green plant for food. and it was so.
All right, very good. So again, we see the author really unpack all of the spheres and all of the created or made animals and birds and fish right here, as he winds down the chapter. So I want to go back to verse 28, and I want to say here again, we see something unique here in verse 28. First of all, we see this word blessing, right? God blessed them. So again, we saw the word create. Now we're seeing the word blessing again. And what I want us to notice is who the blessing is directed towards. So God blessed them, and God said to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the to them is, again, completely unique in the entire chapter. He blessed the great sea monsters and things up in day 5, but he never spoke to them. And you say, Tracy, it's just a preposition. It's like, this stands out.
Right.
He doesn't speak to the great sea monsters, and he speaks to man and woman here. So I'm going to come back to that. But again, we shouldn't ignore that. Now, what is interesting here is he blesses them in a similar way to the things above. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the land. All right, that's what he had set up above. And then he gives this extra thing, and subdue it. Again, it's a plural, subdue. And so he's speaking both to man and to woman. They are the ones, they are the them that are supposed to rule. And that, again, will be part of our point. And we even see that, again, emphasized here at the end of verse 28. And rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heaven, over every living, creeping thing upon the land. So pretty prominent things here. And then all of the first part of creation, or the preparation week, was given as food for all the things here of the second part of the preparation week, before the author concludes here in verse 31. Why don't you read verse 31? We'll make a couple notes on it, and then I want to stop for a moment on some things related to day 6.
31. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good indeed. Evening came, and then morning, the 6th day.
All right, so the 6th day concludes, and again, we see something particular here. He sees all that he had made, so this is kind of unique because it says all which he had made. It doesn't just say what he had done that particular day. And he says it was very good. First time we've seen the word very. Right? So we have to take from this that here at the end, he sees something especially good. And it's all that he had made. And it was very good. Again, this caps the 7 and God saws, caps off the 7 and it was goods. And of course, this concludes the 6th day. Now, what I want to do here, we just have a few minutes remaining, but I want to set up our next episode where we're going to go into some significant things of day 7, the 6th day, and then we're going to go into the 7th day. But I want to kind of set this up and recap the special circumstances of the 6th day. The first thing is that the 6th day is the corresponding day to the 3rd day. So we see here that this is where the correspondence ends, because the 7th day is not going to correspond to anything. There were 2 acts of God's working in the 3rd day, and now there are 2 acts of God working and creating on the 6th day. So that again tells us that we're at the climax. Now, the second thing that's special here is the number of words. This day has the most words attributed to it.
Yeah.
Right? So the first day had a meager amount of words. Second day had more words. Third day had more words. The 4th day had the same amount of words, but more lines, more Hebrew lines. The 5th day went backwards because I think he didn't want to put too much emphasis on the 5th day because he wants to rush on to the 6th day. And now the 6th day explodes with words as he is excited to tell us what God did on the 6th day. We saw that it was very good. That's the only day that gets this mentioned. And by the way, we also we see poetry is used in the middle of the sixth day. We haven't seen poetry before in this. Now we have poetry. Again, the author wanting to put prominence. He wants to draw your attention to this day here. We might even remember the significance of the poetry in the Lion King series.
Mm-hmm.
That poetry is a big deal as it draws on the preceding narratives. And sure enough, here in the sixth day, God is drawing on the preceding narratives here. And in the poetry, which are these parallel lines, the thing that is really highlighted is male and female. That's the thing that is really highlighted. So we will come back to that when we come to our next episode. Another thing is that we have three times the word create here. Only 3 times here in verse 27, right? And this adds to the other times that we will see the word create here. And finally, we have this wordplay between the word bless and create, another way that the author draws prominence here.
Yeah. So before we jump to days 6 and 7, I just have a question of how do we handle the first chunk of Genesis 1 in the light of like preaching? How would you preach days 1 through 5? Would you kind of just get through that quickly? Would you take each one of those as its own little segment, its own sermon? Or would you kind of just breeze through it, get to day 6, and then apply or show how those other days apply to day 6? Because day 6 and day 7 are a little bit obvious for sermon applications.
Right.
How would we preach the rest of the chapter?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And to me, it does come back to our point here of we want to think about, how these texts relate to our real life and, in a sense, our devotion to God. And we could even say devotional reading. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to take all of our cues from the text and from the author who gave us this text. So in a sense, there is everything is headed towards the sixth day.
Yeah.
So I think if it were me, what I would probably try to do is I would probably try to preach this probably in one sermon.
Yeah.
Now that means we have to we have to use less words than we've used in these podcasts. Because again, we've taken up 2 podcasts, or really 3, three episodes, just to get to the sixth day.
Right.
But I think I wanted to show you the detail, and we're making an argument here why the sixth day is a big deal. And we also made that argument, in Genesis 1:1, why everything was created there.
Yeah.
All of that is basically gearing towards our next episode. So I think if it were me, I would try to preach Genesis 1:1 through 25, maybe in one sermon, and talk about God speaking and God's creating.
Yeah.
And show that in that creation, He is sovereign over His subjects. And then perhaps you could do a sermon just dedicated to the sixth day. So you could do it all in one sermon if you wanted to rush over days 1 through 5.
Yeah.
Or you could split it into 2 sermons.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're picking up a commentary, you can't include all details in the commentary. If that's what this, podcast format is, that's why we're taking so much time to break it all down. But we wouldn't expect anyone to take all these details into a sermon.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's right. We don't want to take these details into the sermon. And again, I just want to say that if we're following, again, the intention that we see here in the text, there's not a lot to apply in these days 1 through 5. I mean, again, God speaking, we should be in awe of God. He did create. We are His subjects, so we are under His sovereignty. But it's really, again, if we're following the intention, it's really day 6.
Yeah.
So come back in our next episode where we talk about day 6 and how the Bible is for you and about you.